So, welcome to the first plenary session of the Esports Research Network conference dedicated to esports health and well-being. When we started working on the conference more than a year ago, it was obvious for us that we wanted to bring in the best experts from around the world, but that we also wanted to make the link between the academic world and the esports industry, applied research in the field. This is often one of the most frequent complaints about the academic world, that the academic world is disconnected from the reality of the object it is observing and analyzing. With this ambition in mind, when it came to deciding on keynote speakers, a name quickly emerged. Indeed, I personally watched many esports competition of many games, and within the League of Legends European Championship, there was one person I knew for his academic work and that I saw every weekend in stream behind his team, whether it was winning or losing. And it was Ismael Pedraza-Ramirez. It was obvious to me that he was undeniably the most appropriate person to bridge this gap between the academic field and the applied practice within the field. So I am therefore extremely pleased to be able to welcome Ismail to our conference and have him give the opening keynotes. If you're not already familiar with it, here's some background of Ismail. So Ismail is originally from Colombia, but he has spent the last 10 years in several countries, ranging from Australia to Finland, and now he is living in Germany. After completing his bachelor degree in sports sciences in Bogota and his double master degree in sports and exercise psychology in Finland and Germany, he is currently a PhD candidate at the German Sports University Cologne in Germany. His research is focusing on the psychological and cognitive elements of esports performance. Besides his involvement in academia, he has also experience in the applied field as the performance coach of League of Legends teams like Misfits Gaming and Rogue. His presentation, entitled Shifting the Perspective in Esports, Lessons Learned While Building Well-Being in High-Performance Teams, should offer a relevant insight into his work to optimize players' performance while developing health and well-being approaches, with example of the successful and less successful different strategies he has implemented to get the buy-in from players and coaches. Before he starts, I would like to remind to the Esports Research Network participants and speakers who are in the Zoom room that you can ask your question all along the keynote in the chat. I will gather them and ask them to Ismail at the end of his presentation. And for all the viewers on Twitch, you also have the possibility to ask your question in the chat, and I will make sure to choose some of them for the end. So Ismail, the stage is now yours. You have between 40 and 45 minutes of presentation, and we will save the last 10 or 15 minutes for the Q&A session. Ismail, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Nicolas, and thank you so much for this space that you are giving me and the organizers of the conference for me to share my experience and share my insights basically into the field of esports performance, and as well to share my research and how it is connected. So besides that, thank you as well for the opportunity to have my first Twitch appearance. So we'll see how that goes, and maybe it continues. So we'll see. So we will just make sure that it counts. So okay. So to start with, I would like to show an overview of basically what is the dream of many League of Legends players, many organizations who are involved in League of Legends, which is basically to lift this trophy, lift the Summoners Cup, the Summoners Cup. And during the last 4 years, or during the last 4 World Championships, or 4 years, 3 Chinese teams and 1 Korean team have lifted the trophy. Previously, from 2013 to 2017, the trophy has been lifted by Korean teams. So we can say that it's been 9 years of dominance for the Asian teams, and they have become the role models in order to achieve this dream. However, many organizations are wondering what is their secret formula, why Koreans and Chinese teams and these regions are so dominant in League of Legends, at least. So I have the example of this brand new organization called Ismail Gaming, which are trying to mimic or to simulate the same success that these Asian and Korean regions have in League of Legends. So they start wondering, okay, how these professional esports organizations look like. They have found that in order to be successful, you have to invest a lot of money. You have to invest high sum of money, and this money is obviously at stake. They invest this money to creating or to putting together good rosters and very strong rosters to take part of franchise tournaments and more other areas that they need to use the money for. They have realized that these environments are highly pressurized and highly competitive environments, which means there is lots of stress and pressure. And the only aim of being part of these tournaments or these leagues is to win. We have to consider, and Ismail Gaming is considering that the main actors of these esports organizations or these teams are young people who are exposed and who have specific demands in order to achieve that success. So they have to fulfill expectations from different sides. They have to cope with the high stress of the environment that happens in, or it's higher or lower in different moments during the year. And they have to adapt to tight and long competitive schedules. Also, many of them are putting their future at risk since many of them don't finish their school, and therefore they have to deal with financial pressure at different times of their careers. And finally, one of the demands and one of the aspects that they need to consider is that their young people, these young players, are exposed to toxic environments and cyberbullying at different times in their careers. So it's my the schedule of the most successful regions look like. So they found that in China and Korea, they spend quite a lot of time playing the game, practicing individually, having like the so-called solo queues or just scrims. So almost there are some in per day, 14 hours a day, and per week 70 hours. So this is a quite huge amount of time invested in trying to get better and trying to improve individually and as a team. As well, you can see how Europe is doing. So it's a little bit less than in Asian regions like Korea and China. So this is around 55 hours per week, give it or take. But this means that they spend a lot of time. They have to spend a lot of time playing the game, and basically there is no time for anything else. So Ismail Gaming is trying to understand how they can put together a team together, an organization together to basically define their success as well on this secret formula that is still very, very, we don't know what the secret formula is, but after looking into this, maybe the secret formula is grinding, right? So grinding meaning it is the repetitive task to attain this certain goal. Grinding means that no matter what it takes, you are going to play the game 24/7. For some people, even if your health is at risk, that's not important as long as you master the game and as long as you win. Unfortunately, this is the practice of many still, and this is the belief, which is even worse of many, that the only way to achieve mastery, it is by grinding. And from I think what we've been seeing in research, what we've been seeing in traditional sports, this is something that can change. This is the main thing of shifting the perspective of esports. And these organizations have to start focusing on different directions and how to utilize the resources that they could give to these young people. So basically, I've been in many situations, in many moments when talking with coaches, players, and people around the esports scene that to be able to master the game, you need to do this. You need to sleep, game, repeat. Sometimes you eat, sometimes you don't eat. For some, that's the case, and that's unfortunate. And if you want to integrate different ways of practicing, different ways to improve, they will tell you, I have no time. That's the reality in many cases. If we consider that the players are using every single minute, every single hour of that schedule that I showed earlier, so yeah, probably it's true. They don't have time. But then as well, there is this misconception about how to practice, how to learn, how to improve. Therefore, throughout these experiences, I have brought some specific cases where players bring these arguments when I ask them to, okay, there are different ways of doing things. There are other areas of performance that you can focus on in order to improve. However, they share their insecurity and their fear in terms of engaging in a different practice will mean to change the way how they do things, how they are used to doing things. They are already at the top. They learned how to do things. They learned how to be at the top with their own means. So it is understandable. And that's why they sometimes don't want to engage in activities like exercise or different nutritional habits or different routines or protocols that could improve their in-game performance, but not necessarily by playing it. And their priority is still grinding. Some of these quotes that I brought here are, if the world champions don't look healthy, why should I exercise and eat well? Well, that's been 9 years of dominance, so how can you argue about that? Another one is, whenever a player starts exercising and eating healthy, his in-game performance has got worse. And this could be true. I think I have seen it as well. So these different elements and strategies that we're trying to bring as performance coaches, as health performance or healthcare practitioners, might be relevant if they are not buying into it. So movement, balanced nutrition, healthy sleep routines, and others, unfortunately, they get rejected, and that's a big obstacle that we have to try to walk around. Obviously, there is in esports there is a huge amount of obstacles, malpractices, and issues that need to be addressed before we try to get the buy-in of players. And this is what I would like to get now into. But before that, I would like to highlight my perspective on how these how my insights have come to be together. And then you need to know that I did not have any idea about esports until 2016, where I was doing my master's degree in Finland, and some colleagues of mine were involved in esports already, and that's basically the timing point that I found esports interesting, and I realized the importance of performance psychology and performance in general that could be applied for esports. So I found it quite interesting and attractive to get involved. So basically, I came from traditional sports, especially from soccer or football for some. I will call it football. So I play at a high competitive level football throughout many years. I'm the number 4, if you haven't noticed it, maybe not. So I was very interested into sports, into traditional sports, and I was always very interested into trying to understand human behavior and how to optimize performance. So that's why after my football career, I moved into studying in different universities, and mainly in Europe. And from here, I moved to esports. I became the performance coach of Misfits Gaming in 2017, which I entered as a complete newbie. It took me a few weeks, if I would say a few months, to understand what the players were actually saying and understand how coaches and players were communicating. It was a long process for me, but I was still very open to learn and to get better at what I was convinced that I could help with for performance optimization and just facilitating processes. So after that, I moved into another esports organization, Rogue, in 2019, with more experience, with a better understanding of the field. And this was just basically a very, very important transition for me, as I got to understand how I could do things for the players and coaches. So I have to highlight that my personal sport experience helped me to define my purpose and decisions when opting to study sports science and sports psychology, and my posterior involvement in esports. These came all because of frustration, and in my case, a tough situation of not becoming a professional football player, where I could contribute in that I could be attributed to many different elements. So, however, during this reflection into why I wanted to go into sports science and sports psychology, was what stand out to me was the lack of mentorship that I have in crucial moments of my career was definitely an important element that made me not continue following this passion that it was football to me. So that's why I decided to prepare myself to help others to achieve their potential, to help them to achieve their potential, and to bring these players and coaches appropriate mentorship. So this is how I define my purpose, and obviously this doesn't come without challenges, but I'm telling this story because I think it is important for each of you and everyone who's working in this scene, in this industry, to understand what is your purpose. So I would like to move into my theoretical understanding and how I work basically in esports, and it comes from theory to practice, from practice to theory. So it is a combination of both. And I would like to start by addressing some theoretical foundations of my research and how this research is informing my applied practice. So first of all, with my colleagues at the German Sport University in Cologne, we wanted to do a systematic review to summarize the body of research up until 2020 around esports and trying to understand those psychological characteristics of both cognitive and game performance in esports, and to highlight the interplay of psychological aspects of performance in esports. I think an important aspect of this systematic review was for us to introduce the field of performance psychology into esports and try to better understand how we could continue contributing from a scientific perspective into this field. So I'm not going too deep into the results or the methods of the systematic review, but I would like to address that the game performance or the outcomes that we're looking into game performance are those outcomes or performance indicators that we have available, although they are very limited still, which most of you might know. So rank, kill, deaths, assists. So we look into what are those outcomes that we're addressing different manuscripts and different scientific papers that we're looking into esports performance basically. And those cognitive performance elements that are around the executive functions of working memory, higher order functions, inhibitory control, cognitive flexibility, to try to understand performance. So we screened around 12,000 articles by title and abstract, and we selected 404 articles for full analysis. Which in the end only 52 articles were selected for the systematic review. There were 13 articles that were addressing only cognitive performance elements, and there were 25 articles addressing only game performance elements. 15 of them were addressing both elements of performance in esports. So I will just want to address a few important takeaways from this systematic review and how it is connected as well to the applied practice. So it seems that playing esports could help in the development of cognitive functions However, the mixed evidence suggests that we have to consider the uniqueness of each esport game. So I think this is something that I see a lot in research at the moment, and it's just the combination of different games and the integration of different genres when looking at very specific cognitive or psychological or other elements of performance. So I think that's why there is still some lack of understanding of the cognitive development of this esports training or esports practice. So I think we still need to do better at this level. Also, players need to adapt to constant game changes, and since many of you know, for example, League of Legends is changing, the game is changing quite often. So we need to learn how to implement the specific structures of training and methodologies of training to help the players and coaches to learn faster, to learn better, to have a proper developmental aspects in these learning phases. Also, the performance declines occur when sessions are too long. So we go back again, how we're practicing, how we're training. Is this related to the grinding sort of idea? So what is the trade-off of this sort of approach? So we see already some papers talking about playing for too long is not beneficial. So we have to support this evidence and to continue trying to better understand, to have more quality studies in this direction, to develop these training structures and to better understand how we can implement deliberate practice in esports. Additionally, the performance peaks and declines are highly dependent on the esports that is played and based as well on the training habits. We can see how in specific esports, like for example in League of Legends, we are going more in the direction of having younger and younger players for many different reasons. And then as well, there is this myth or this idea that players older than 24 are already old, or 25 are already old, that they don't have the same cognitive abilities. And then we have games like Counter-Strike that players are 27, 29, and they're still doing very well. So I think we have to try to understand and research more in this direction, and as well consider the decisions that we have in the organizations. To finalize with a systematic review, so we propose a heuristic model of esports performance simply to depict that investigation should test the bidirectionality of the influence of the factors related to esports performance, and to assess the strength and the influence of those factors that we can investigate. So one of these examples is building expertise in esports, how the deliberate practice and learning processes can influence the development and the improvement or the training of the players, and additionally how we can influence the environment, or what is actually the influence of the environment in these learning processes. So there are definitely some challenges. In the systematic review, we address 10 top challenges. I'm going to address 2 of those. So defining career development. So we need to identify and support those career paths of an early talent development stages. We have the roles, the role models are Korea and China in terms of performance in League of Legends. And then their system, their practice system doesn't really fit for Europe and North America, as far as I know. So we really need to try to identify how to establish a specific career development paths for these players. And additionally, these go in the same direction of there is the need of coaching development. We need to support these coaches and to have this a sort of idea of how we can coach the coach and how the coach can influence development. Moving into a second research project that has influenced my applied practice and has informed what I do in the field, has been looking into the environment, has been looking into trying to understand how players see their own development. And this is based on a theoretical framework from Henriksen 2010, work that they've been doing in Denmark and Scandinavian countries that has been very influential to understand talent development and to try to understand that microenvironment, meaning those who live in the same building, those who are part of the house, and what is the influence of those members of the team for performance and for development. And the macroenvironment, those people or those elements that are outside of the house, that could be fans, could be parents, could be anything around that, and what is the influence of them. So if we get to understand in your own team, in your own organization, how these elements influence your development and your performance, you will be able to take specific decisions. So that's why we qualitatively interview players and coaches and trying to understand how they see their development, how they see their environment. And just to summarize a little bit the research that we found here, and more following the same theme of this conference, I'm gonna look into specific elements of nutrition and health that were addressed by players and coaches. So they address the positive influence of adequate nutrition and movement. So some of them were mentioning healthy food in general is really good. I think that this type of food helps me feel good. Food is very important for me, as sometimes I can feel heavier and I don't feel good. In the side of movement, I think it's important to stay fit, as it's not healthy to sit for the whole day and play. And one more is, if I don't do sports for 2 or 3 weeks, I feel that I'm missing something. It feels that my body wants to do something. I'm like more tired. I think it's more like a mental thing. If I don't do exercise for some time, my mental is worse. One of the big issues as well is they don't know how to establish or how to engage in these sort of structures or practices. So they don't know how they can exercise. They don't know what they can do in this direction. So that's where our role comes into place. So another aspect that we found in the interview study was the game development. So how the game influences as well their learning process, their performance. And many of these things could sound obvious, but we need to know them as well for them. We need to know what they think. And some of them were mentioning that the game changes so much that they could be playing maybe less. So the game changes every 2 or 3 weeks, and then champions get changed or stuff on the map or some objectives. And then there are big patches as well. So that changes like almost completely everything. So that's when we need to understand what is the training load that we're giving to the players. What is the load in general, the stress load, the pressure that we're bringing to the players when the game already is changing so much and is such a big stress and pressure factor. So what are decisions are we taking here? Another area was addressing the high pressure environments. So their job is really high performance. So if they stop performing at a high level at some point, their job is on the line. So obviously there is some work already going in this direction from colleagues in looking into stress and looking into pressure environments in esports. But this tells us a lot that we need to consider these things when we are implementing our protocols, when we are developing our programs. So this means that we have to consider the uniqueness and the demands of the esport that you are working with or that the players are playing, as understanding how the game functions. And not because we work with only the mental side, the physical side, we don't consider these things. We have to consider the uniqueness of it, and try to understand as well the specificity of the esports culture, and what is the interaction of the elements of the environment, of the actors of that environment. So so that you can help to establish adequate programs to optimize your team performance. So I have some pictures here of our team Rogue. I think we've been doing a very good job on establishing different elements and trying to adapt to the culture that we have and the players that we have. And so I think we're doing a good job in this direction. So something that we got to understand is that, or something that I got to understand throughout the years, is that we have to consider the context. This coming from the understanding that I have seen situations where we directly transfer practices from traditional sports into esports. I have seen how coaches and leaders of teams are encouraged into this idea of let's say toxicity in esports or cyberbullying, toxic behavior, just because it could look like, let's say we're looking into how traditional teams or soccer teams or basketball teams and many of these series that are out there, they are very interesting. But then because we see that they are tough, their culture is very tough. So we have to do the same in esports. So we are not considering the context there. And I have seen this in many cases where it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. As well, for our own practice, I come from traditional sports, and I got to realize that I cannot transfer exactly in the same way the processes that we are doing in traditional sports. We need to adapt as well to the context. There is this situation of high performance demands versus low resources and support. And this goes as well in the same direction as my example, my early example with Ismael Gaming, where coaches, organizations are demanding high performance, are demanding to win, while not facilitating or not supporting this process for development. So this is not clear and established in terms of how they're developing their own young talent. So we need to really help these young players to meet the demands by giving them resources, by assessing the needs, and by sometimes you have to invest financially in some areas to be able to find that balance. Last part of what I want to mention in terms of context is oftentimes, and this is more as well for many of those who are here, is that we have to share that responsibility in building the adequate environment or the adequate structure or system in esports. We often are blaming the organizations and teams in their decision making. However, we as practitioners have the direct contact with players, coaches, managers, and those directors. So we have this responsibility to educate and to really find the ways how to do things differently and how we can contribute to define a systematic change. So as well, this is part of our responsibility and not only leave it on them. So I might admit that so far we've been mentioning the bad things, some good things, some changes that we have to do. But I have to admit that these obstacles and these issues that I have encountered throughout the years is slowly changing, and we can see it with these two pictures, which are interviews of high-profile players and coaches, where they're encouraging, nurturing a holistic approach, talking openly about burnout, about mental health, about how they're practicing, and why it's important for them to do things in a different way. So we need to encourage this behavior. As I have seen, like players and coaches already asking us, please help me to eat healthier. Please help me to get fitter. Please help me to be better, right? And not necessarily from the in-game perspective. So I think this is the chance for us as well to engage with them and to change them a different way and to educate them, as I think education plays a very big role throughout this process. Therefore, it's important to empower and encourage players and coaches to talk about the importance of their decisions and habits for sustainable high performance. So I think like this awareness needs to continue being promoted in research and in the applied field as it will continue growing to become more public and more normalized. Part of this presentation and this keynote was as well for me to understand what I could give you or what I could help. What is the idea of this keynote at all? So I think one of those was to bring more awareness about your own practices. And this goes in the idea that I would like you to think, why are you involved in esports? I think this is an important step that everyone has to take if you are working, even if you are working in science or you are working in the applied field. You need to ask this tough question about why are you involved? What is your purpose? And if if you're working with the players, okay, what is your philosophical approach? What is your philosophy and what is your vision? So I think this internal work needs to be done, needs to be promoted, because this will bring more clarity in your practice, that will bring more clarity in what you could do, how you can carry out things, and will potentially contribute to the steel construction of this industry. So I think this is very, very important for your understanding, and for my understanding. It was very important for my understanding as well, and it's still continuous, still changing all the time. So now I would like to share part of my purpose, but as well I think it's many of you will feel identified with this purpose. One aspect of it is to stop the destructive culture around esports. I think we need to start normalizing toxicity, bullying, fear, intimidation. I have seen many of these cases, even in high level of performance. And yes, again, we can say high level of performance, it is high pressure. That's what it is. You have to be tough, you have to be resilient, you have to be like this. And if you cannot take it, you shouldn't be part of it. The issue is that we are not considering that they're jumping from their house to gaming house to LEC top level. And yeah, it could be tough, it is stressful, but you need to give elements. We need to nurture this. And one example is the work that some colleagues are doing in understanding, in learning how the organizational culture in sports are toxic cultures in the Olympic sports, and they've been studying this and are brought to the public awareness. This is not okay, and this is just more distractions for performance. So this is not that typical at all for esports. Yeah, so the second aspect of my purpose is to bring more support and resources in early career paths, as I have mentioned already, to reduce those early retirements due to injuries and health issues. We have seen recently many cases where high talented or very, very talented players are retiring due to health issues. And it's good that this is very open right now. It's good that they are not covering anything, but still, it means that we have a lot of things to do in order to promote more health and for optimal performance. At the same time, promote a proactive and holistic approach for optimal performance. And this goes as well in the same direction of we need to be proactive instead of reactive. I have seen approaches that, yes, when there is an injury, okay, treat it, fine, but this is not the way how we should be working. I think we can still doing processes that are around a more sustainable practices with the aim of being consistent, to bring this holistic or more integral approach to reach consistency, to everyday changing behavior, reinforcing attitudes and beliefs on players and coaches, so we can actually have this change or this shift of the usual paradigm of performance and how things are done in esports. So I think since the players are still in development, I feel that not everyone is still in development. Still 9 years already of performance or of esports, let's say League of Legends, where we have already experienced players. So I think it is important that when anyone goes into a team, anyone's going to an organization, you have to ask these questions. How can I facilitate an optimal environment? You need to look into what type of players you have. Are still in development, are experienced? There is a mix. You need to have this process of needs for assessment. So what type of players do I have? What is their current belief system? How can I establish optimal interventions and how these interventions can be influenced for a consistent process? I think one important area for myself, for my practice, is to bring consistency, is to bring consistent behavior. As you saw in the interview study, yeah, they are now very aware. And I say now because before, when I started, I don't think this was a common knowledge or common understanding that nutrition and exercise was good and important. But now it's sort of getting better and common knowledge. But do you actually engage in that? The player is easily engaging in that? Probably not. There is not the knowledge, and as well, sometimes there are not the tools. So we have to encourage this. Just to end, basically, I would like to show a bit more in detail what I'm doing, what I've been doing, and I will show this in the work that we've been doing in Rogue in 2000 or this year at the end of spring split. We were awarded coaching team, and then they made a video about it. So I think I thought this is one of the better ways for me to show what I'm doing, and then as well you will bring more ideas in terms of the practices that we engage with our team. So I'm gonna play the video. I hope it works. I'm not sure if it works. I hope. So yeah, just play it. Please let me know if it works.
I am the head coach. I'm looking at overall structure of the practice. I cover the game stuff, reviews, drafts, so mainly game aspects. The assistant coach, that's Bloomingen. He's basically my right-hand man, who give opinions on kind of a lot of stuff. He has a very close relationship with the players as well, so he spends a lot of time talking to them one-on-one as well. We have our analyst, Nico, or Blue Knight. He covers all like the scouting. He's looking at stats, he's looking at what is played in other regions, and he's giving a lot of information on build, things like that. And then we have Ismael, who is more in charge of like stuff that affects performance outside of the game.
From the outside of the game structure as well. For example, with fitness training, with nutrition, we have a chef, another performance coach who as well is jumping in and out from the different teams in Rogue. So we have a large coaching staff, but the core is the 4 of us. But then everyone is putting a little bit into the performance of the guys.
We want them in the office at around 12. We have meditation in the morning. That's one of our like anti-stress. From there on, we have a meeting before scrims almost all the time. Then we play our 5 scrim games, we review between those games. Afterwards, it's either free time, sometimes we have our exercise.
Then as well, we have strategies like breathing techniques. And then between some of the games, we have another strategies to keep the attention and alertness at a high level, because you cannot remain for 5 hours, 6 hours fully focused.
There's a lot of talk going on, right? But what are we actually doing on the map? I'm not really like completely sure.
Everyone's talking at the same time.
Yeah, everyone's talking at the same time, so I think it should be like Kasper said about going Dragon. We can just make a plan around it, right? Or we can follow the plan.
The relationships are very important, but then as well, like outside performance. So how are they sleeping? How are they eating? How they interact with each other and how well they get along with each other. It's a big part of it, because in the end, the game is more or less the same, but how you approach different areas will influence decision making inside of the game.
Localista. He has no flash.
I'm coming.
He has no flash.
We can fight this. Yeah, you can go.
No flash Udyr as well. No flash Udyr. No flash Udyr as well.
It's good enough. Don't go deep.
He's dead.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's very good, very good.
That's the Meganar. Odoamne coming in. That's the Meganar. 3 into the wall. Fnatic don't see it coming, but Odoamne digging graves for the Fnatic faithful. That's the triple.
From the game side, it's actually, they fit in very well to the system we had last year, especially with Odoamne, because we often did play weak side top, right? And that happened to be the meta at the start of the season. And wow, now we've kind of opened up the styles a bit. I think it was just a very natural fit for us.
I would say I have the best split of my career. I'm doing a lot better now, and I feel like everyone is kind of like enabled me to do the things I do, and I feel like, yeah, Rogue is fitting like a glove for me so far.
For Trimby, I mean, we wanted a rookie with like some firepower, some like raw mechanics, right? And we knew we'd develop him as the year goes on and he'd get experience, right? So from the game side, it was actually very easy. And that also goes back to scouting those players as well.
Trimby came up clutch there, because while Odo couldn't find the engage, Trimby definitely did.
We don't want them already to be well-made or finished versions of themselves as players, but we're in a process of development, and that was a big focus. So I think both of them they bought into our culture, and they have been able to adapt.
I think one thing that's important between us as coaches, I think we have very good relationships, so we can talk things out, and I think that's something that's quite rare in a lot of teams, just to be able to talk the way we do. We're constantly kind of pushing, how can we make the guys, like, at the end of the day, how can we make them play better?
Penta.
Okay, chill.
There have been challenges, there have been things that they need to try to understand and be open-minded about things. And I guess that's the nature of coaching, in which we try to come up with solutions and problem solving to try to help them to integrate in our culture and with the team.
It is Rogue who come out on top, and Rogue who will fight G2 for finals.
Keep supporting them. They are trying their best. They are at a high level of stress and pressure. And us as coaches, we will just want to help them to enjoy what they're doing as a pro players, but then at the same time, we're trying to help them to develop. And the support of fans is very important during this process.
Okay, so I think that's all from my side. I hope that you enjoy. I hope that you get to have better understanding my position, my insights, and then as well to maybe bring some awareness around how we're doing things and those things that we need to change and do different. So now I'm looking forward to comments, questions, and yeah, I have a good time. I hope you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ismail. It was a great presentation, actually, and the chat was really animated. There were a lot of actually questions, but also discussion during your presentation. It was quite amazing, and I really want to thank the chat and all the viewers to be so involved in this conference and in your presentation. So I noted a lot of questions. I will just drop the question one by one. Okay, Ismail, if it's okay for you?
That's
nice.
That's perfect.
That's perfect. That's cool. So the first question is from Jordan Whiting 06. So my question to Ismail would be, what would be your key advice for a young nutritionist or psychologist trying to get into the esports industry, which is actually a very common question. How do you get in the industry when you have some skills in a specific health or performance related, area? How do you get in esports?
I think obviously depends on the level of let's say level of performance or level of competition that you would like to get. But I think we can learn this from traditional sports. Everyone would like to work with professional teams, with Olympic athletes, Olympic players. But then I think we need to start small. We need to really start just engaging into networking. So going to esports federations, going into esports teams, and just offer your job, getting you to be noticed. I think that's important. I think the best advice is just to try to gain as much experience and as much knowledge, prepare yourself as better as you could be, because obviously the theory is completely different than in the practice. And this is the moment that when you are in the practice is when you say, okay, I knew something or I did not know anything. So I think preparation is very important.
Thank you very much. Another question from Mensch11. So my question to Ismail would be, how do you approach the cognitive load with the players?
How do I connect the cognitive load? I feel like it is around, obviously, trying to find the balance, looking into how esports functions cognitively. I would say, like, in terms of cognitive training, maybe the esports itself or the game itself is already a cognitive tool. So obviously you will be overloaded very, very often. You can tell how the players are super tired at the end of the day when they are fully focused. And that's why consistency and efficiency has been very important and crucial for my practice. So bringing strategies that can help to reset, that can help to put a little bit the emotional side away, because that's another cognitive load when you are bringing emotional aspects. So for example, doing breathing exercises, doing meditation, doing sometimes even physical activation between the games, between the scrim games, to always try to fill the tank, right? Always try to bring that balance. So that's how I manage the cognitive load, and as well looking into the season, how the season look like, and try to to have this cooperation with the coach when they are establishing their basically their the screen partners and their basically their practice. How does it look like? What teams do we scream, and so on and so on. So I think that balance is very important.
Thank you. Actually, there are a lot of questions that are coming right now. So I'm not sure that we will have the time to actually ask you all the questions. So next question from Icebergy, YouTube or YT. So how do shoulders and forearms support factors in the optimization of play style? So does having stronger forearms and better wrists and shoulders make you a better player or a worse player? I think that the idea behind that is regarding, I don't know, musculation, the pushing a lot of weight. Is it good or bad for actually performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question, right? I would like to know that as well, honestly, because I don't think there is research on that direction yet, specifically in esports. I might be wrong right now, but I think in this conference you have big experts in this direction as well, that they might address this element, and I would love to know. Like, I would like to say like yes, because your muscles are stronger and they can compensate in different elements of being seated the whole day. But honestly, I'm not sure, and I would like to know the answer as well from our colleagues.
Yeah, indeed, there will be physical therapists like, of course, Caitlin McGee and Lindsay Miglior and Kevin Ho from 1HP. There will be actually experts that maybe will have the answers regarding this. Thank you very much. Next question. So a question from Kermo Boys TV. So question to Ismael. What would be the main psychological and physical criteria to determine and maximize players' buy-in?
Could you repeat the question? Players buy-in?
Yeah, sorry. The players buy-in. The player.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the buy-in depends on their belief system and as well what you're bringing to them. Like sometimes when at the beginning especially, I try to, let's say, force this traditional sports way of doing things. And that was when I found more obstacles around it. So I think the best way to get the buy-in is by educating, by bringing examples, by bringing more awareness. Why is this important? And try to as well learn from the player or the coach needs, understand their needs. So that's why a needs of assessment is very, very important. I have this intake, try to have this, let's say, bond or this rapport that can help you to understand better the player, and then try to feed specific protocols, exercise protocols, or any other protocol that could be important for to get that buy-in, basically. I hope that answers your question.
I hope too. Another question from Dr. Delta 150. So I like this question, to be honest. So do you notice any differences in the performance psychology between game titles? I don't know if you are working in Rogue or if you used to work with other game players that are playing in other game titles like Rainbow Six or I don't know, Counter-Strike. But did you find any differences in the psychology of the players or the approach?
I have not worked directly with other esports, to be honest, only with League of Legends, but discussing with colleagues, I feel like there are differences in their psychological profile, and that goes as well in the direction of age and direction of experience. So you can tell like League of Legends players might lack of sometimes of some specific life skills, but just due to age and due to that experience or when they get engaged with it, in comparison maybe to more first-person shooter games. But honestly, I'm not 100% sure.
Thanks for your honesty, actually. That's really cool. Because sometimes not many people are how can I say that, they will to say I don't know, and I like that you can say actually I don't know. That's really cool. That's honest.
I mean, I feel that that's the moment that we're in esports as well, and this is as well for everyone to understand that a practitioner cannot have all the answers, right? And we will be put in that position in front of players where they are expecting you to have all the answers, but then you have to be confident enough and genuine enough to tell them, I don't know, but I will try to find the answer. I will go into our support system and try to look into how to answer the question. So I think that's something that as well we need to learn. Yeah, definitely.
Next question from Marquis in Spades. So I like also this question. Is there any marker in game or clinical sign yet to track when a session is too long? You haven't seen, but in the chat there have been a long discussion about the time you spent playing and training. And is there any very objective, criteria or indicator to say, okay, it's too long? I can imagine that it depends on the game also, because between Street Fighter and League of Legends, this is not the same involvement, of course. But have you got any marker in game or clinical signs that can say it's too long right now?
I think it depends on the game, like you are saying. It really depends on the game. Like in League of Legends, the game is changing so much that's why the players say, I have to grind the game, I have to play so much. I know that there are some researchers looking into identify fatigue, cognitive fatigue and tilt, and how this could be related to how much the practice should be. From the research perspective, I know that there are some papers addressing like practicing too long is not beneficial, but we still don't know what that too long means, right? So that's why we go into deliberate practice. So having efficient practice. I think from an applied perspective and experience, we have noticed that we have a block of practice of 5 hours, and then we have a break of 2 hours, and then we go into another 2-3 games afterwards with the team. And this is completely not beneficial due to the attention levels as well, the attention span that us as humans have. So I think this is something that we need to really address, and will help a lot for this cognitive fatigue that players will be involved.
Thank you very much. I hope that Marquis in Spades liked the answer. Another question from Tengu Flow. So first, thanks, Ismail. It was very interesting presentation. So here is my question. Do you think that the latest version of holistic athletic model from Willeman from 2019, I don't know if you know this model, can be interesting or relevant to study the career development model of esports players and preparation to their post-athletic career retirement?
Yeah, absolutely. I just mentioned one holistic approach. That is one of the theoretical frameworks that I started with, but I know that there are many other different ones from Willeman, for example, the work from Belgium, the Netherlands. There is these dual career paths as well to try to help these players. Like they should be able to finish their studies and then as well try to engage and play and become professional athletes, professional players, and then obviously what is after. I think this can be very related and very, very important to bring different positions and perspective in career transitions. Something that we will have to experience very, very soon is how are we helping our players to retire, not because of injuries, not because of this sudden retirement, but then if they play enough and then they want to move on, okay, what are they going to do? So this is something as well that these theories and these approaches can help us, can benefit us. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Isma. I'm looking at the time. Actually, I will ask you the last question. I'm really sorry for all the viewers. Those who haven't actually asked the question to Ismail, but I will keep the question and I will send all the question to Isma.
Sure.
And after that, we will try to answer that on the YouTube channel, in the comments, and we will try to find a solution. Okay. So last question from Blown Cookies. Regarding the metaverse, actually, will the metaverse have a positive impact on the well-being of players?
The metaverse?
Yeah, the metaverse, this kind of, actually, are you able to define what is the metaverse? You know what we are speaking about?
No, yeah.
No, okay. This is this idea. To be honest, I won't be able to define it because it's used, actually, the term metaverse is used for anything right now. I've seen people talking about meta sports, it's sports in the metaverse, but is it different from virtual reality, augmented reality? It's the kind of Ready Player One, you know, the Spielberg movie. So
yeah,
is the fact to be connected in a virtual environment, you know, and always connected with a lot of data, a lot of stuff with you, you know, that are connected, could be.
I think like if we're talking about virtual reality and these, let's say, environments where you're using your whole body, like exergaming, but as well like sort of integrating your body and having this embodiment aspect, I think it could be something that will be interesting for the future as a esports sort of environment. But I mean, I'm not sure if this will fit into the idea of esports as how we know it right now. But I guess that's the future as well. We don't know where esports is going, anyways.
No, we can't imagine actually, and it's moving so fast. And every year there is a new game, a new game genre, new technologies. It's very difficult to, you know, this is this question: where do you think esports will be in 5 years? How do I know? I'm not a magician. I can't say.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are approaching to the end actually, Ismael, and to be honest, we overpassed the end, but it's because there are actually, as I said, there are a lot of people in the chat asking a lot of questions, and I really want to thank the people, the viewers, but really want to thank you, Ismail. I'm a big fan of you. You know it. I have the time, the opportunity to tell you how fan I am of your work. It was a real pleasure, and to be honest, it was the best way to address all the topics that the conference is aiming to address with this opening speech, this opening keynote, because you addressed all the stuff that the various speakers during these 2 days will try to actually speak of, you know. So it was really perfect. I'm really glad that you accepted to actually join us. No, that's
thank you.
Really
Thank
cool.
you so much. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the time, and I hope like everyone as well is enjoying. And we still have 2 days of full of lots of knowledge and interaction. So I'm very looking forward to that.
That's really cool. If people want to follow you, you are on Twitter. Yeah, so Isma Pedraza.
Yeah,
sorry.
Pedraza.
And I'm quite sure that we will see you again in the next months and years, and that your work is fantastic and very useful for all the industry. And right now, I will make the transition. We will see you in a few minutes for the next slots regarding nutrition in esports, with a panel with a lot of experts, with someone that you really know very well, Ismail, which is Anton Mikhailov, who is the chef of Rogue. Of course, Jessica Turner from QUT, so the Queensland University of Technology in Australia. Also Stephanie Harvey from CLG, and a former actually world champion in CSGO. And all these people will be actually moderated by the great Stephanie Orm, which is also the speaker for the Esports report, the Esports research report, our podcast. So please stay connected, all of you, and see you in a few minutes for the panel. Thank you very much, Ismail. It was a real pleasure to have you. And take care of yourself and stay safe, okay? And see you.
You too. Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.